Okay, for this video, we're going to customize our main character by redesigning some of their sprite animations. And instead of starting from scratch, I'm going to use a template in Threadbare as a guide because I think it's going to be much simpler for a beginner artist like myself. So we'll find the sprite sheets in Godot, we'll edit them in a free pixel art tool, and then we're going to get them right back into our game. Let's start though with our Git workflow. Okay, keep in mind this starting workflow in Git is just to make sure that our local copy of the project is updated before we begin our work. Okay, navigate to your StoryQuest folder using the cd command or change directory, followed by a space and then the file path. You'll know you're in the right place if you see a branch name at the end of that file path in Git, or you can just type the command git status and it will confirm that you're actually on a branch and in a repo. If you're not on main branch right now, switch to it using git space switch space main. Then pull any latest changes from your teammates with a git space pull command. This grabs updates from your shared online repo and pulls them down to update your local repo before you start working. Finally, switch to your feature branch for your character redesign work. You'll have to use a -c after git switch if this is a brand new branch that you're using for today's work. Working on a separate branch like this keeps your main branch clean and matching what's on the shared GitHub repo with your teammates. This helps you avoid potentially running into conflicts later when you try to get the newest updates again. Okay, back in Godot, with our project open, let's go to the file system. I'm going to go to my StoryQuest copy of the player components folder, and I'm looking for the walking animation PNG file. Notice there aren't any PNGs or picture files in player component. There's just this one resource file, .tres. All the sprite sheets are actually bundled inside that file. If you double click it, you'll see an animation panel appear at the bottom of your screen. This is where all your character's animations live: idle, walk, attack, etc. If you plan to add or adjust sprite frame animations for any other characters, you may be coming back to this panel. Now look at the inspector on the right. Since you opened the resource file, it's showing what's inside, including each animation's PNG. Click the drop-down on the far right of any of these rows. Choose Show in File System, and you'll jump right to that file. We're going to use this just as an example so you can feel comfortable changing any animation going forward. Right-click on it and select the button that says Show in File Explorer. This opens your computer's folder where you can actually see where it's stored on your computer. Okay, next we're going to load this file into Piskel app. This is a free online pixel art tool. We're just going to go over a few key elements of Piskel app for our workflow here. There are two ways to get this PNG into Piskel. The first option, use Piskel's import menu. Click on Browse Images, and then right-click on the PNG in your file manager. Choose Copy Path, and then paste that path into the file name field. Or, much simpler, you can just drag the PNG straight from your file manager onto the Piskel canvas. Both methods bring up the Import and Merge window. Here's the key step. Select Import as a sprite sheet because we're working with multiple frames of an animation, not just a single image. Piskel shows you a yellow box indicating how it thinks each frame should be sized. Right now it thinks this is all one single frame, but we want each drawing of the character to be its own frame. The height looks correct, but the width needs to match. Change the width to match the height. Try 192 by 192. Now you can see in the preview that we get the correct dimensions for each individual frame. Go ahead and click Import, and your character loads into Piskel ready to be edited. You can see all the animations previewed in the top right, all three frames cycling through, showing your character's walking animation. Now I'll show you a time-lapse of me editing the template character using some basic tools in Piskel. This is just one way to alter the basic template. There's definitely different approaches you can take to making your own character from this starting point. Basically, at first, I'm using the paint bucket tool to quickly change the character's coloring from gray to what I want. It's great for filling in large areas with color quickly. I'm also using the brush tool and adjusting the brush size to paint on new details, like adding a cloak to the template character. On the right-hand side, I'm adding colors to the palette that Piskel app gives you so I can keep using them as I work. There's also a color picker tool in the bottom left. It looks like a little dropper. That's helpful to match exact colors and reuse them elsewhere. And I'm also using some basic shape tools to add a belt and belt buckle to the character. The rectangle tool worked well for that. Once I have my character the way I want, I delete the extra frame so I just have my redrawn first frame. Then I duplicate that frame in the top left so I have two identical frames. Turn on onion skinning. This shows the previous frame as a faint background image so you can see exactly how much you're moving parts of the character between frames. So I'm going to use the lasso tool here, and I'm going to select different parts of the character's body or limbs. I hold Shift, click and drag and move them to new positions, and then hit Enter to place them. And with the onion skinning on, I can kind of see how the movement looks compared to the previous frame. You can also see this movement animated in the preview in the top right. So from here, it's experimentation, especially when you're beginning. You're trying to imagine how moving different parts will look across multiple frames. I suggest making slight alterations between each frame, and when you're happy with the movement, duplicate that frame and repeat the process for a third or a fourth frame, etc. I'm keeping it simple with just 6 frames, and several are copies just to control the animation speed. This gives me smooth movement without being too complicated. When you're done with your drawing, look on the right-hand side of Piskel for the Export button. In the Export menu, make sure you have PNG selected as the file type, and you can adjust rows and columns here. I'll set it to 6 columns in one row, so it looks like one long line of character animation frames going left to right. Once you have your layout set, select Sprite Sheet File Export and click Download. This will save to your Downloads folder. Here's what it looks like with one row and 6 columns of frames. You can name your file in Piskel or right-click and rename it later on your computer, but I suggest following the convention that you see with the other PNGs in Godot. Back in Godot, click once on your Story Quest copy of the Player Components folder, then click and drag your new sprite sheet directly on top of the folder name with your mouse. This will add it alongside the others. The last thing we need to do is figure out how to apply it to our character. Okay, you've got your picture loaded into Godot and stored and named correctly, but now we need to apply that picture to your character. Your character's animation frames are all stored in what's called a resource file that you copied when you copied all the template folder files. This particular resource file is called player, and the ending of the file is .tres. Click on that file and it will bring up an animation panel at the bottom of your screen, because that's what this resource file holds. It's basically a bundle of all the different animations being held for your character. So in this tool, we can look at the different sprite frames and we can see we have a walk animation that still has the template walk. So what we want to do is replace that animation with our own frames. Select walk from the list, then go to the little trash can and remove all the template player animations. Now click on this little grid button. This lets me add new frames for the animation. I don't want to delete the animation completely because it's programmed to work perfectly when the player walks. I want to take advantage of that. So this brings up a file picker, and I need to navigate to where I just loaded in our new PNG. And then Godot just needs to understand how big and how many different frames there are before it adds them to the animation panel. So you can adjust this manually on the right-hand side, or you can try the auto slice button, which usually works. Now it needs to know the order. Our sprite sheet goes left to right in order, so I'm just going to click on each frame from left to right. And notice it starts counting at 0, so even though the top number is 5, there's actually 6 total frames here. Then click Add Frames at the bottom of this window. So now in the animation panel, we can see our character. Now we can save those changes by selecting Save All Scenes. And then we can see on the right-hand side in the inspector that our new sprite frames have been added. Okay, now we should test this by going to one of our scenes and seeing if the walk animation works. And let's choose the intro scene that we made a copy of. I'll double-click it and open it in the viewport. I also notice that when the character goes idle or is just standing there, it just goes right back to the template character frames. And that's accurate because we only changed the walking animation, so we would have more work to do there. But we've successfully swapped out the template animations with our own sprite frames. So we can go ahead and change all the different animations for whatever scenes we might need for our story quest. Once we have all those different animations drawn and changed using this process, we can reuse them and that character in any new scene that we want to make. Last thing to do is quickly get back to Git and save these changes for our teammates. Okay, so back in Git, I'll type git status, and this shows me which files I've actually modified, changed, or deleted or added. I always like to do this to make sure I don't accidentally save things that weren't part of my plan or goal for the day. After looking at the status, I can type git space add space, and then I can just paste the file paths of the exact files that I actually want to add to this save. In this case, there's only a couple. I'll paste the first file and then press spacebar, and then I'll highlight, copy, and paste the second file. When I've added them both, I hit enter. Next, I'm going to save it locally with a git space commit command. The -m just stands for message, and you can see in quotes, I'll describe what I've done for this feature. The last thing I need to do is push this to GitHub. I'll type git space push, and then I have to add the set upstream origin here, followed by my branch name. The set upstream part is because this feature branch I made today only exists on my computer. It doesn't exist on GitHub yet. So I'm not only pushing my changes to GitHub for my teammates, I'm also telling GitHub to create a copy of this branch online and add these changes to it all in one command here. After hitting enter, everything's been pushed to GitHub, and I can confirm this by going to GitHub and checking the main repo page. I can see a banner at the top that says compare and pull requests because it's noticed there have been changes. If I click that, I get a simple window where I can make sure I'm doing a pull request against our main base branch. I have another chance to add a title and a description here for my teammates, and I'll do that now and keep it simple for this change. Then I hit the green Create Pull Request button, and I wait for one of my teammates to review and merge the changes into the main branch. Once it's merged, you'll have successfully replaced your character with your own custom design.